You ever sacrifice years of your life for someone only to find out you were never even in the picture when it mattered most? That's what happened to me. I wasn't after anything. Not praise, not inheritance, just a little respect. But apparently, even that was too much to ask. My name is Daniel Reed, and I'm 45 years old. I never expected my life to turn out like this. I didn't have a master plan, no big ambitions, no dream of living in a city penthouse or retiring by 40. All I ever wanted was stability, a good home, a decent job, maybe a little peace. But life rarely hands you what you ask for, especially when your last name is Reed. My father, Edward, was never the easiest man to be around. Not cruel exactly, but cold, distant. Like someone who was always halfway out the door, even when he was sitting across the dinner table. He wasn't the kind of dad who played catch with you or taught you how to shave. He was the kind who paid the bills, fixed the roof, and expected you to figure the rest out on your own. My older brother, Marcus, was the golden child. He had our dad's jawline, his confidence, his unshakable belief that the world owed him something. And for as long as I can remember, Dad favored him. Not openly. Dad wasn't the type to hand out hugs or say, "I love you." But you could see it in the little things. The way he looked at Marcus when he walked into the room. The way he listened when Marcus talked. With me, it was different. I was the quieter one, the one who kept his head down, got decent grades, stayed out of trouble. I didn't ask for much. And maybe that was my mistake. Mom passed away when I was 27. Breast cancer, fast and brutal. She was the glue that held our strange little family together. After her, everything kind of frayed. Marcus had already moved out by then. He was building a life in Chicago, working in finance, making big moves and bigger mistakes. I stayed. Not because I had to, but because someone needed to be there for Dad. At first he resisted, said he didn't need help, that he was fine. But I could see the way he stared blankly at the kitchen sink like he couldn't remember what he'd just walked in for. I started doing small things, cooking, making sure the bills were paid on time, taking the car for servicing. It wasn't a burden. He was my father. And I hoped, that maybe in caring for him we'd find some common ground. We didn't. If anything, he grew more withdrawn, more irritable, like my presence was a reminder of everything he'd lost, or maybe everything he'd never been. Still, I stayed. Year after year, through the early signs of dementia, through the arguments over lost keys and forgotten names, through the doctor's visits and the sleepless nights when he wandered the house confused, muttering my mother's name under his breath. Marcus? He visited once a year, Christmas usually, showed up with some overpriced bottle of wine, made polite conversation, and left before dessert. Dad always lit up when he saw him, smiled like a man who hadn't smiled all year. And I'd just sit there, watching, holding the fork like it was anchoring me to the table. There were moments when I wanted to scream, ask Dad why Marcus, why always him? But I didn't, because that's not the kind of man I am. Instead, I focused on the small victories, like the day Dad remembered my birthday without a reminder, or the night he fell asleep watching TV, and I covered him with a blanket, and he whispered, "Thanks, son," before drifting off. Those were the moments I held on to. In 2022, Dad's condition worsened. He could barely walk without help, forgot names, places, sometimes even who I was. I hired a part-time nurse, but most of the care still fell on me, lifting him, bathing him, feeding him. I stopped taking work trips. My social life vanished. My back ached every morning and I barely slept. But I never complained, because I thought I was doing the right thing, because I thought, when the time came, he'd remember. He died in January of the following year, peacefully, in his sleep. I was the one who found him. I sat with him for a long time. Just sat. No tears, no breakdown, just silence, and a strange, hollow ache I couldn't quite place. Marcus flew in for the funeral. He gave a beautiful speech, talked about how strong Dad was, how much he meant to us, how he taught us the value of discipline and hard work. And people nodded, teared up, patted him on the back. Not one of them asked who had changed Dad's diapers for the last 6 months. After the service, we met with the family lawyer, Mr. Bennett. He was an old friend of Dad's, crusty, slow-moving, with a voice like dry paper. "Your father updated his will 2 years ago," he said, unfolding the documents like they were sacred scripture. "He wanted everything to be clear." And it was. The house? Marcus? The land? Marcus? The savings account? Marcus. Everything. To Marcus. Except one thing. To me, he left a box. A small locked wooden box. No key. No explanation. I didn't say a word in that room. Not when Marcus looked at me with what I can only describe as pity. Not when Mr. Bennett offered to help me get it appraised. I just took the box, tucked it under my arm, and walked out. The box sat on my kitchen table for 3 days. I didn't touch it. Didn't try to open it. Just stared at it. It was small. Maybe the size of a thick book. Old, too. Dark wood, scuffed edges, brass hinges worn soft by time, no keyhole, just a tiny latch that wouldn't budge. It felt heavy in my hands, not just in weight, but in meaning, like it carried something more than just things. On the 4th night, I finally reached for a screwdriver and gently pried it open. Inside were 3 items. 1, a folded letter. 2, an old black and white photo. 3, a pocket watch. I opened the letter first. "Daniel, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. And if I know you at all, you probably didn't expect much from this box. Maybe not even this letter. I won't pretend I was a good father. I wasn't. I failed you in ways I saw, and worse, in ways I didn't. But I saw you, even when I didn't know how to say it. I saw how you stayed when Marcus left. I saw the meals, the rides, the patience. God help me, I saw it all. And I was ashamed. Not of you, of myself. I favored Marcus because he reminded me of myself, confident, loud, ambitious. I thought that meant strength. But now, looking back, I see I was wrong. Real strength is quieter. It shows up without being asked. It does the right thing when no one's watching. You were the strong one, Daniel, and I am sorry I didn't tell you that while I was alive. This box is not a reward. You don't need one. You already lived the truth. But I wanted to give you something that mattered. The photo is of my father and me taken when I was 6. The pocket watch was his. He gave it to me when I turned 18, and I've carried it every day since. Now it's yours. As for Marcus, don't be angry. He's going to need all that money more than you ever will. With love, Dad. I read it 3 times, and then I cried. Not because of the watch, not because of the photo, not even because of the apology. I cried because it was the first time, the only time, my father ever said anything like that to me, and he had to die to do it. I called Marcus the next day. He didn't pick up. Typical. So I sent him a text. Got the box. Thanks for nothing, as usual. Petty? Maybe. But it felt good in the moment. For the next few weeks, I tried to move on, went back to work, cleaned out Dad's house, dealt with the lawyer to transfer utilities and handle the death certificates. The usual bureaucratic mountain that comes after someone passes. But something gnawed at me. The letter had said Marcus would need the money more than I ever would. That stuck with me. I didn't care about the house or the savings, but I did care about why Dad wrote that. I started digging, not in a malicious way, just curious. And what I found didn't surprise me, not entirely. Marcus was broke, big time. Turns out his finance job ended 2 years ago. He got fired. Embezzlement allegations that never made it to court but got him blackballed from half the industry. Since then, he'd been jumping contract to contract, draining savings, living on loans. The house Dad left him? Already listed online. Zero down financing available. The land? In talks with developers. The savings? Rumor had it they were already half gone, paying off Marcus's personal debts. It hit me then. Dad didn't leave everything to Marcus because he loved him more. He left it to him because he was protecting me from it, from the legal mess, from the creditors, from the rot under the surface of Marcus's so-called life. And the only thing he left me, the box, was the one thing that still had real value. Not money, but meaning. I wore the watch the next day, just to see how it felt. It ticked softly, a slow, steady rhythm, the kind that reminded you time doesn't rush. It just moves, whether you're ready or not. I took the photo, had it restored, and framed it on my shelf. Dad and his father, smiling in a rare moment of warmth. The same smile I saw on Dad's face once when I brought him chocolate pudding, just because. The letter? I kept that in my desk drawer. Read it on quiet days, on tired ones, on days I missed him, and on days I didn't. 3 months later, Marcus finally called. His voice was clipped, stressed. I could hear cars honking in the background. "Hey," he said. "Got a minute?" "Sure," I replied. "What's going on?" Look, I know things were weird after the funeral." "Were they?" He sighed. I didn't know Dad changed his will. I thought everything was going to be split." "You didn't ask," I said calmly. "Yeah, well, I've hit a bit of a snag. The land deal fell through. The taxes are insane. I might have to sell the house at a loss." I was thinking. He paused, and I could practically hear him chewing on his pride. "Maybe we could split some of it. I mean, I know you didn't get anything, and that's not fair, so maybe—" "I got something," I said. "What?" "A letter and a watch." He scoffed. "Come on, Daniel, be serious." "I am." He was silent for a few seconds, then he said, "So that's it?" I smiled, not bitterly, just tired. "Yeah, that's it." And I hung up. He never called back. But I heard from mutual acquaintances that he ended up selling everything. Moved in with a friend, took a job well below his old pay grade, tried to start over. I didn't gloat. I didn't cheer. I just kept living, quietly, honestly. And every morning, I wound that old pocket watch, just once, with care, and let it tick beside me as I drank my coffee. Because in the end, my father had taught me something after all, that some legacies can't be measured in property lines or account balances, only in the moments we choose to stay. A few weeks after that call with Marcus, I found myself driving out to Dad's old property one last time. It was empty now. Marcus had already stripped it of anything valuable, furniture, appliances, even the old tool chest from the garage. He hadn't even bothered to lock the front door. I stepped inside and was hit with that familiar blend of dust and memory. The walls still held echoes of my childhood, the quiet dinners, the television murmuring in the background, my mother humming softly while folding laundry. It didn't feel like home anymore, but it still meant something. I walked slowly through the house, kitchen, living room, Dad's bedroom, my old room, still bearing the faint imprint of a faded poster I'd once taped to the wall. Then I reached the study. It had always been my father's sanctuary. He'd sit in that worn leather chair, reading the paper or paying bills, the lamp casting a golden circle around him like a spotlight on a man too proud to ask for help. I noticed the bottom drawer of the desk was still locked. Curiosity got the better of me. I grabbed a screwdriver from the garage and forced it open. Inside was a stack of notebooks. I picked up the top one. It was one of those old cloth-bound journals Dad used to keep when I was a kid. He never talked about them, and we never dared to read them. I opened it. The handwriting was familiar. Tight, slanted, efficient. Most of it was dry, bills paid, maintenance logs, notes about the heater acting up, grocery lists. But halfway through, something changed. March 3rd, 2020. Daniel made chicken again tonight. Burned the bottom a bit, not that he'd admit it, but I ate every bite. Man means well, works too much, worries more, doesn't say a word, but I can see the tired in his eyes. I wonder if I was ever that kind of son. Probably not. May 11th, 2020. Marcus called. Said he was busy. I didn't even tell him I was in the hospital last week. What would be the point? Daniel drove me. Waited outside. Got rained on and didn't complain. Sometimes I look at him and think, this man was shaped by everything I lacked. And yet he turned out good, better than me. God help me, I don't deserve him. August 29th, 2021. Daniel trimmed the hedge today. I yelled at him for it, said he missed a spot. Truth is, I was just scared. My hands shake now. Couldn't do it myself if I tried. I don't know how to say thank you without it sounding weak. So I bark instead. It's no wonder he looks at the floor when I speak. I read page after page, and something inside me cracked open. He had seen me all along. He just didn't know how to say it until it was too late. I took the journals home, not to keep. I didn't need more weight on my shelf, but to read through slowly, over time, like a conversation that never got to happen. Each entry gave me a little more closure, not because they erased the past, but because they gave it shape, like looking at a puzzle and finally seeing where the missing pieces had always been. March 3rd, 2020. Daniel made chicken again tonight. Burned the bottom a bit, not that he'd admit it, but I ate every bite. Man means well, works too much, worries more. Doesn't say a word, but I can see the tired in his eyes. I wonder if I was ever that kind of son. Probably not. May 11th, 2020. Marcus called. Said he was busy. I didn't even tell him I was in the hospital last week. What would be the point? Daniel drove me. Waited outside. Got rained on and didn't complain. Sometimes I look at him and think, this man was shaped by everything I lacked, and yet he turned out good, better than me. God help me, I don't deserve him. August 29th, 2021. Daniel trimmed the hedge today. I yelled at him for it. Said he missed a spot. Truth is, I was just scared. My hands shake now. Couldn't do it myself if I tried. I don't know how to say thank you without it sounding weak. So I bark instead. It's no wonder he looks at the floor when I speak. I read page after page, and something inside me cracked open. He had seen me, all along. He just didn't know how to say it until it was too late. I took the journals home. Not to keep, I didn't need more weight on my shelf, but to read through slowly, over time, like a conversation that never got to happen. Each entry gave me a little more closure. Not because they erased the past, but because they gave it shape. Like looking at a puzzle and finally seeing where the missing pieces had always been. A month passed. Then 2. Life went on. I reconnected with some friends, took a weekend trip, started dating again. Nothing serious, but it felt good to laugh with someone who didn't know the whole history of my family drama. One afternoon, I was at a local diner when I ran into Mr. Bennett, my father's old lawyer. He looked the same. Same slow gait, same briefcase, older than most cars. "Daniel," he said, smiling, "you look well." "I feel lighter," I replied, and meant it. He sipped his coffee. "Your father was a complicated man, but he thought highly of you. Told me more than once that you were the one keeping the whole thing from falling apart." I raised an eyebrow. "He said that?" Bennett chuckled. "In his own way, yes. Edward didn't give out compliments. But when he trusted someone, really trusted, he made sure I knew it." He paused, reached into his bag, and pulled out a small envelope. "What's this?" I asked. "Something he asked me to give you. Said to wait 6 months after the will." My heart beat a little faster. I took the envelope and slid my finger under the flap. Inside was a short note. "Daniel, if you're reading this, I hope some of the anger has faded. There's a second account, under your name. I didn't want Marcus to know about it. You'll find the info with Bennett. Use it how you like. No strings. This isn't payment, it's recognition. Dad." I looked up, stunned. Bennett gave a small nod. "It's not millions, but enough to matter. He wanted to give you something in private. Said the public part wouldn't make sense to anyone else." For a moment, I just sat there, blinking. Not because of the money, but because the man I thought never saw me had, in fact, been planning this quietly, in the background, in his own flawed, careful way. That night, I opened the second account. There was enough there to pay off my mortgage, start a modest business if I wanted, or just breathe easier for the next few years. I didn't touch it, not yet. I just sat with the knowledge, let it settle, because it wasn't about what I could do with it. It was about what it meant. I've thought a lot about forgiveness lately, how it isn't always loud, how sometimes it looks like waking up one day and realizing you're not bitter anymore, just free. I forgave my father, not because he asked for it, but because holding on to that hurt was like trying to keep a fire alive long after the match had burned out. Marcus and I don't speak anymore. He sent me one last text a few months later. "You always got what you wanted anyway. Don't act like the victim." I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. I'm 45 now, and for the first time in a long time, I feel at peace. The house is quiet. The coffee is hot. The old pocket watch ticks beside me like it always does. And every now and then, I look at that framed photo on the shelf of my father and his father, and I wonder what kind of man I'll be remembered as. Not for the money, not for the things I owned, but for the moments I stayed, for the things I never said, but always meant. It's funny, the way time softens everything. 3 years have passed since my father died. 3 years since the will, since the letter, since the silence between Marcus and me turned into a permanent wall. And yet, life moved forward, quietly, steadily, just like that pocket watch he left me. I didn't spend the money for a long time, not out of pride or guilt, just out of thoughtfulness. I didn't want to treat it like a windfall. I wanted it to matter. In the end, I used part of it to start something small, a home maintenance business. Simple, honest work, fixing things, showing up on time, treating clients with respect, nothing flashy. But every time I carried a toolbox into someone's house, I thought of my dad. Not the man in the hospital bed, the one in the garage muttering about stripped screws and doing it right the first time. He never said much, but the lessons were there, tucked between the silences. Now, I try to pass them on. In every job I take, every person I hire, every young apprentice who reminds me of myself at 20, quiet, unsure, but watching everything. Some days I still visit the old cemetery. It's not about grief anymore. It's about connection. I sit on the bench near Dad's headstone, read a few entries from his journals, tell him what I'm working on, not because I think he hears me, but because saying it out loud makes me feel grounded. One afternoon while I was there, a man approached me. Late 30s, polite. He stood near the neighboring plot, laid flowers, then lingered. "You come here often?" he asked gently. I nodded. "Every couple months. My dad's buried here." He looked at the name. "Edward Reed?" "Yeah." He gave a faint smile. "I knew him. Years ago. I used to do some plumbing work at his place. Grumpy old guy." I laughed. "That was him." But he tipped well, the man added, and he always remembered my name, even when I didn't think he would. We stood there for a moment, both staring down at the stone. He ever talk about his kids? The man asked. Not really, I said. But that's okay. I talk for both of us now. I never heard from Marcus again. Not when I launched my business. Not when I moved into my new place. Not even when I sent him a card, the last olive branch I had left, for his birthday, with just 2 words inside. Take care. He never replied. And maybe that's for the best. Because not all stories need a neat ending. Some just stop. And we have to decide what to carry forward and what to leave behind. The watch still works. Every morning I wind it once, hear that soft, reliable tick and feel a kind of peace I didn't know I was missing for most of my life. I don't wear it every day, but I keep it close because it reminds me that time and people are rarely perfect, but sometimes even the broken things still work. A few weeks ago, I hired a young guy named Trevor. 21, tall, wiry, quiet. He reminds me of me, not because we look alike, but because he shows up early, listens carefully, and always double-checks his work before saying he's done. One morning, we were repairing an old woman's stair rail when he looked at me and asked, "Was your dad in this line of work too?" I hesitated, then nodded. Sort of, I said. He built things, not always with wood or nails, but yeah, he built things. Trevor smiled. Cool. That was it. And yet, it meant something. Sometimes the people who hurt us the most didn't mean to. They just didn't know how to love the way we needed. I've made peace with that. I've made peace with the house, the will, the silence, with the memories, and even with Marcus. Because when I look at my life now, it's not perfect, but it's mine. And I wouldn't trade that for any inheritance in the world. So if you're wondering how this story ends, I'll tell you. It doesn't. Not really. Because stories like this don't have grand finales or slow fades to black. They just continue, one quiet act of grace at a time. One moment of showing up when no one else does. One truth whispered too late, but not too little. My name is Daniel Reed. I'm 45 years old, and I used to think I was invisible to the people I loved. But now I know better, because sometimes the deepest kind of love doesn't shout. It waits, and when you're finally ready, it leaves you a key, even if it takes you years to find the lock.